The decline of the U.S. industrial sector has been accelerating at a frightening pace over the past decades. Millions of manufacturing jobs have been shipped to overseas markets, and a large share of our production has been offshored to China. The shift has been so intense that some argue the United States is rapidly becoming the very first post-industrial nation on the globe. But all of this happened with a cost. And for American workers, that cost has been massive. Yearly wages for manufacturing jobs range around $48,000 to $60,000, allowing workers to support middle-class lifestyles and granting them medical insurance and retirement benefits. But especially after the 2000s, Americans have been losing job opportunities in the manufacturing sector and being left with limited low-paying options that do not provide any benefits nor promote financial stability. Deindustrialization also leaves the U.S. supply chain in a very risky position. Since much of the products we buy and consume are produced outside of the country, one single disruption in shipping or manufacturing in foreign nations can lead to shortages, price increases, and port congestion in the U.S. Even worse, if America were to enter a global conflict, sanctions on exports from Eastern nations could completely break our domestic supply chains and trigger an unprecedented amount of chaos all over the country. Unfortunately, it seems that we won't be reversing this trend any time soon. Today, we have gathered some telling statistics that illustrate why deindustrialization is becoming a national crisis. Before checking this list, please support us by leaving a thumbs up and subscribing to our channel so you don't miss our future videos. Without further ado, here are 20 sad facts about the downfall of the American industry. 1. In the 1940s, the United States was the largest producer in the world. In fact, by 1945, more steel was produced in the state of Pennsylvania alone than in Germany and Japan combined. This Belle Epoque, the glory days of Made in America, ran well into the 1990s, but after that, the American industry steadily declined. 2. By the turn of the century, the U.S.'s global domination in mass-scale industrial production, technology, and efficiency was lost. Long-standing issues culminated between 2000 and 2010, when the U.S. lost over 30% of its manufacturing jobs. This was a very tough decade, a very dramatic shift, explains William B. Bonvillian, a lecturer at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Millions of jobs just disappeared, he says. 3. Between 2000 and 2010, over 6 million jobs in U.S. manufacturing disappeared, with the sectors most prone to globalization displacements, such as textiles and furniture, taking the biggest hit, according to research by Bonvillian and MIT's Peter L. Singer. The study also highlights that most of the jobs that were lost were in the lower end of production, as opposed to higher skilled jobs. In other words, one of the main routes into the American middle class just got cut off. 4. In 2015, the U.S. ran a trade deficit of $832 billion in manufactured goods. By 2017, the U.S. trade deficit included a $110 billion deficit in advanced technology products. That's a shockingly high figure, considering how many advanced technologies originate in the U.S. 5. The U.S. remains the second largest manufacturing country in the world, but its global dominance has been well and truly lost. Over the past 5 decades, manufacturing's share of gross domestic product in the U.S. has shrunk from 27% to just 11%. 6. 4 out of 5 Americans, or about 81%, cited the loss of manufacturing jobs as the main driver for the downfall of the American industry, according to a 2020 Pew Research Center survey. As a share of the overall workforce, manufacturing has been dropping steadily since 1953 as other sectors of the U.S. economy have expanded at a much faster rate. From nearly a third, or 32.1% of the country's total employment in the 50s, manufacturing accounts for less than 8.5% of jobs today. 7. U.S. manufacturing output as a share of GDP for 18 of 19 U.S. manufacturing industries, except for the sector of computers and electronics, has been and continues to look extremely bleak. From 2011 to 2021, manufacturing value added as a share of GDP declined by around 10%. If this annual rate of decline continues for the next 10 years, U.S. manufacturing output as a share of GDP will be just short of 7%. 8. The U.S. population has more than doubled in the last 70 years, but manufacturing jobs have not grown at the same rate as the population. In 1949, the population was 149.2 million, while today it is 331 million. Despite this expansion, the same number of people worked in manufacturing jobs in 2019 as in 1949. 9. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, the manufacturing industry lost 7.5 million jobs since its peak in 1969, with the most significant drop between 2000 and 2020. While the U.S. population grew by about 18% between 2000 and 2020, there were much fewer manufacturing jobs for the workers to fill. 10. After China began participating in the World Trade Organization in 2001, Chinese imports to the U.S. have more than quadrupled. The main reason companies ship their production overseas is because of the cost savings. Countries like China have very few labor laws and a low minimum hourly wage, which means companies pay employees a lot less for more hours of work. 11. Since 2001, about 2.4 million manufacturing jobs were shipped from the U.S. to China. But while many manufacturing jobs have moved overseas, automation is still the primary cause of the manufacturing job market decline. 12. The main reason manufacturing jobs are being replaced by automation is the decreasing costs of integrating automation into manufacturing facilities. The costs of robots and automation are expected to drop by 65% by 2025. Given that automation is far less expensive than employees, we will continue to see manufacturing jobs decrease in numbers. A study by MIT predicts that 57% of all manufacturing could be fully automated in the next 20 to 25 years, which means manufacturing jobs will continue to deplete if we don't come up with a solution. 13. In contrast, the average factory in America is over 25 years old. The machines and equipment inside these dated factories are usually over 9 years old themselves. 14. According to Houseman's data, if we exclude the sector of computers and electronics, manufacturing's real output expanded at an average rate of only about 0.2% a year since the beginning of the 2000s. By 2020, real manufacturing output without tech goods was lower than it was in 2010. 15. The increase in foreign imports and diminished demand for American exports has resulted in the shuttering of some 78,000 manufacturing plants in a span of only 10 years, marking a 22% drop. 16. Due to the virus health crisis, the American industry lost 1.33 million jobs, with each state losing between 20,000 and 40,000 manufacturing jobs in July 2020. Amongst them, Michigan lost 63,600 jobs, Ohio shed 38,400 jobs, and Pennsylvania saw 36,600 manufacturing jobs disappear. 17. Manufacturing's share of U.S. employment sunk below 10% in 2010 and will likely never rise above that mark again. Employment in the manufacturing sector in 2020 was 9.6% less than it was in 2006, and it doesn't look like that trend will see a reversal in the future. Conversely, unemployment rates for manufacturing jobs sit at about 5.2% today. 18. Some estimates expect employment in production-related sectors to decline by as much as 4% more by 2029. Specifically, metal and plastic machine workers can plan on about 7% of their jobs disappearing in the next 7 years, and assemblers or fabricators can expect an 11% decline in the number of jobs over the same time period. 19. When it comes to the United States outsourcing statistics over the past 10 years, a large number of jobs are still being sent overseas, leaving hard-working Americans without stable employment. According to estimates released by Aptitude, since 2010, about 300,000 jobs get outsourced to the U.S. each year. And 20. As for 2022, 71% of financial service executives revealed plans to outsource or offshore some of their services. About 70% of retail and transportation firms are going to do the same, while 82% of pharmaceutical companies say they will outsource services this year. These numbers expose that a deindustrialized America doesn't have any kind of viable economic future. While our domestic production declines, we continue to be the largest consumers on the planet, and that has been expanding the U.S. trade deficit to alarming levels. As the most powerful economy on the globe, we shouldn't be putting ourselves in such a vulnerable position, and especially not leaving our workers with jobs that only allow them to live paycheck to paycheck. Our national debt has become way too big, and our economy is now just a shadow of what it once was. Outsourcing our production is a strategy that will come back to bite us in a moment when we need it the most. America's future is in deep, deep trouble. Now more than ever, it is time to wake up.